Hi everyone, it's Eriberry here. This is the second attempt at making this video. Looked over the first version, wasn't really happy with it, thought I'd do it again. I am a huge fan of The Big Bang Theory and of Amy Farrah Fowler. The actress who plays Amy, her name is Mayim Bialik, I think I'm pronouncing that right. She also is a YouTuber and she has made several videos on several different subjects. Many of them I agree with, some I don't agree with, some I'm like, meh. 2 years ago, Mayim uploaded a video explaining how she reconciles faith and science. Mayim is Jewish. She seems very proud of her faith and very emotionally invested in it, which is fine. But a lot of people question her because she's also a scientist. And science has often been regarded as the opposite of religion, like the two are completely at opposite ends of the poles. Reading some of the comments on that video and also the second video she uploaded just July this year, in which she pretty much says the same thing. So many people believe that religion and science can go hand in hand. I am not one of those people. Before continuing this video, I actually would recommend that you watch Mayim's two videos first of all. I will put the links in the description below, so go check them out first of all, and then come back and watch the rest of this so you'll know a bit more about what we're talking about. There are many things that Mayim said in her videos that I don't agree with. There are questions that I have, and I thought therefore I'll do a response to her two videos.
You might be wondering, how can you be a scientist and also be a religious person?
Yeah, I am kind of wondering. There are scientists out there that are religious, and there are scientists that are not religious. However, when actually doing science, when you're in the field or in the lab or whichever it is you're doing, you never use religion in the lab or on the field to explain something. It's like having two opposing sides in your brain at the same time. So if you put water and oil into a bowl, they'll be in the same bowl, but they won't mix.
Isn't being religious fundamentally in opposition to everything that being a scientist is about?
Yes, it absolutely is. Religion is about blind belief, way of life, restrictions on what you can and cannot do, things you can or cannot say or think. It's something that people are indoctrinated into at a young age. Science lets the evidence lead them to the answer. Religion claims to already have the answer, but they never tell you how they get there. Let's first of all start with what she doesn't believe God is.
I don't believe God is an old man with a beard in the sky who grants you magic fairy wishes if you recite the right words or feel guilty enough. I don't believe that God can grant you a parking space if you pray hard enough. And I don't believe that God has set up some code of behavior, and if I don't live by it, I won't be granted my place in heaven among the angels.
God has not set up a code of behavior. Have you read Leviticus? How can you not believe God has set up a code of behavior when your particular religion dictates what people should and shouldn't do and the consequences of not doing that or the consequences of doing the opposite?
The God I believe in is the force in the universe that drives all of the phenomena that we experience as human beings. God is gravity, and God is centrifugal force, and God is the answer to why everything is the way it is in the natural world.
God is gravity and God is centrifugal force. So everything that happens in the universe is God. Since when did gravity become a deity? Since when did centrifugal force become a deity? A lot of people many years ago believed in fairies. I could say fairies are flowers and fairies are foliage. And it's the force that drives the flowers into bloom and toadstools to form a ring. All of the studies into flowers and flora and fauna and fungi have never ever shown there, ever, to even have the need for fairies or evidence of any kind of fairy activity. Scientists have never discovered a single shred of evidence that suggests that all of these forces are something else other than those forces. And then you get into this whole philosophical argument about, well, something can't come from nothing and something cannot happen without something making it happen. Well, but then you get to infinite regression. They're saying that happened because this made it happen, but nothing made that happen, even though the whole thing about something happening is it had to have something behind it, but then that thing behind it didn't need anything behind that. I don't get it. Anyway, we're going a bit far. Let's let Mayim continue.
Understanding equations that describe gravity and pressure and force and torque is science, and that's amazing. But having a spiritual connection with that information...
Oh, there's that word, spiritual. Mayim, you studied the brain. Surely you know about oxytocin and dopamine. You know that these chemicals, these hormones, cause us to feel emotion. What is spiritualism? Is it something that happens outside of your brain? If there is, then there has to be evidence for it, but there isn't. There are actual physical reasons why we feel things. The brain is part of the body. The brain functions like another organ.
So much so that it brings you to your knees because it is so unbelievable, is what it means to have a relationship with God.
Sorry, you say it just brings you to your knees because everything's amazing. You may feel these emotions, but how does that give you a relationship with God? I'm struggling to understand that.
I also ascribe our ability to think, to reason, to love, to build, to create as divine, because it's amazing that we exist. Like, do you ever get that feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we exist?
Yeah, I do. I'm sure many people do. But amazement and describing something as amazing is purely subjective. It is just your point of view. If you didn't exist, then there would nobody there to call it amazing or to feel amazement. No scientist would ever describe something scientifically as being amazing. They'd never write in their PhD, like writing up their results, this was amazing. But if God exists, then God exists outside of your brain, regardless of whether you exist, regardless of whether you feel emotion or whether you don't feel emotion.
A closeness with a notion of God gives me the opportunity to experience myself as a spiritual being and not just a physical or a mental one.
I still don't know what you mean by that. A lot of people use the word spiritual, but what they're really trying to explain is how they feel something. Is spiritualism just another word for extreme emotion? Because we all feel extreme elation in our lives sometimes, real deep connections with people. Mayim then goes on to reel off very many emotional experiences and says that they measure her relationship with God.
It can be measured by the way it feels when you read a poem or a psalm and you feel like someone out there understands you and there is a purpose to continuing your existence. It can be measured by the way it feels when your stomach flip-flops over and drops to the ground when you stare into the eyes of someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with. It can be measured by the enormity of emotions you feel when you look at the Milky Way or when your baby smiles at you for the first time. It can be measured by the depths of despair that you feel when someone breaks your heart. And it can also be measured by the hope you feel when you know that you will love again. So what do I get from religion? Well, my religious practice gives me discipline. It's normal and healthy for human beings to have boundaries.
Yeah, I totally agree with boundaries. I totally agree that we need to have stop signs, that we need to know what to do and what we should and shouldn't do. But you can completely achieve that through secular means. You don't need a religion for that. The Torah, on which Judaism is based, is formed of the first 5 books of the Old Testament. The boundaries with Judaism are very restrictive. Those books actually command the death penalty for those who don't follow many of those rules. We have the law, but above all, we have empathy. I know that it's wrong to hurt somebody because I wouldn't want to be hurt myself. Law has actually moved on in time from thousands of years ago. It's changed a lot, and it hasn't changed because of religion. It's actually moved past religion. And there are certain things, for example, homosexuality, that is completely legal now, at least in my country. It's now no longer illegal for a woman to marry her deceased husband's brother. People who conceive children out of wedlock are now no longer required to marry. Adultery isn't illegal anymore. Neither is divorce.
And I'm inspired by the notion of a responsibility to a universe that is governed by something bigger than me. It's okay for smart people to believe in religion, and we aren't always happy with how religion looks or how religious people act. But there's a force in the universe that underlies all of this beautiful chaos. And understanding the relationship between science and God, I think, makes me a better scientist and a more complete person.
So Mayim actually does believe that the universe is governed by something bigger than her. Gravity varies from particle to particle. If you were to go near a black hole, for example, there's no way you'd be able to escape the gravitational force of the black hole. The philosophy that Mayim talks about a lot in this video is very general, not specific to Judaism, and what she says seems to be more from a deistic point of view rather than a Jewish point of view. And most of her arguments can actually be adopted and utilised by any other religion in the world. They can say the same thing she's saying and make it fit for their religion. But anyway, we will now move on to her second video.
Why would a scientist be religious? Why would someone who knows so much about the universe believe in mythology and magic? Why do you need religion as a crutch? That's what people ask me.
Yeah, we ask you those things because we are genuinely interested, Mayim.
A huge aspect of what I find so appealing about religion is the opportunity to focus on mindfulness.
Just a quick quip in here, if you've ever seen my other videos about autism, you will know I am not a fan of mindfulness. However, I do know that a lot of people get a lot out of mindfulness, a lot of people practice it regularly, a lot of people find it works for them. For me, it's mumbo jumbo, but again, let's keep an open mind here.
Yes, part of this is accomplished in my religious practice by a connection with something greater than myself, which we do tend to call God.
You do tend to call God. The first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Torah, they specifically talk about God as actually being a being. He knows who he is. He actually thinks and talks. So you're saying that you tend to call him God, but shouldn't you call him God because that's exactly what your literature says you should?
Judaism, in its original state, was actually designed to introduce a concept of mindfulness.
Was it? I've read Genesis. It seems that it's a story that people have come up with to try and explain things that they don't have answers for. I don't quite understand how that equals mindfulness.
One way is by instituting prayer throughout the day. The notion of mindfulness is a constant exercise for Jews. And while we may hone our mindfulness with an awareness of something that we call God,
You call God. Doesn't God call himself God? He says, I am the Lord your God. So why are you calling him God? He called himself God. Is he not the lawgiver? Is he not the one who says things as they are?
I don't feel that my scientist self is compromised at all by participating in things like meditation, yoga, deep breathing, and even prayer.
I do like the fact that she's saying, I don't feel. So she is not stating something as a fact. She's not saying, no, it's not compromised at all. So I do acknowledge her honesty in that point. Mayim also does make a good point in this video in which she says, you don't need religion to practice mindfulness. No, you don't. But then she mentions prayer again. But prayer, as far as I can tell from the religious text, prayer is for the purpose of this God so that they can hear you pray, rather than a benefit for you. I might be missing something, but that's at least what I perceive it to be.
Do I have issues with religion? Heck yeah. Do I have a strong distaste for the patriarchal flair of Judeo-Christianity? Yes, ma'am. Do I have concerns that certain religious beliefs and political leanings that are in line with those religious beliefs might contribute to a world of hate and destruction rather than one of love and unity? Absolutely.
Then why are you religious? Why? I appreciate that Judaism has been a huge part of your life ever since you were tiny, but you don't have to stay in it. Why do you follow religion when clearly you could come up with your own worldview or philosophy that could accomplish the same thing as what you're trying to say here?
I'm grateful that I can connect with this trend in popular culture while still having it be completely consistent with the ancient religion that is mine.
I completely disagree that your religion is consistent with science. Your religion teaches us that God created the universe in 6 days, rested on the 7th, and there are so many inconsistencies and so many problems in it, so many plot holes, that I really don't know how anyone can defend the stories in the Old Testament. I really, really do not.
There is something very, very special about combining that awareness with thousands of years of ritual and tradition, and with this thing that is greater than myself, which I choose to call God. And honestly, that's why I'm religious.
You choose to call God. That is not consistent with Judaism. Throughout these 2 videos, Mayim has not specifically referred to Judaism. She has outlined prayer that is instituted sometimes throughout the day in certain situations, but that's about it. She could easily just follow a philosophy and not give it a name. So basically, that's the conclusion of my videos. Now, Mayim, I have a huge respect for you. You're well-educated, you're highly intelligent, you're a brilliant actress, but I just don't agree with everything that you're saying in these videos. Many of my subscribers and people who watch me will know that I'm not religious. I don't believe in any deities of any kind whatsoever. I don't even believe in the supernatural, and since I dropped those, I've been so much happier. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please tell me what you thought in the comments. Give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's up to you. I'm sure I'm going to get people tell me that I'm wrong or whichever, which is perfectly fine. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!